You missed a trick not ending the podcast with Hail Satan.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel need the need for speed.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads. Snakes. Why do it have to be snakes?
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Batman.
Comic-Con thing that's going on just now, they're unveiling a whole bunch of stuff for Marvel, but there's so many jokes even at like Marvel's expense. I don't know why you'd be going into it expecting something like really gritty.
I know, I don't quite get it, but that's the way it is, unfortunately. And it does really surprise me because the review of Deadpool in the Sunday Times was completely tone deaf. It was complaining about all sorts of things, and it was obvious that the guy had a bit of an attitude towards the MCU and superhero movies and stuff like that anyway. But some of the things he was saying was like what you were saying, and that it doesn't, like he mentioned the fact that there was jokes at Marvel's expense and all that, and Disney's expense, but it didn't quite relate that to the fact that that's the way that Deadpool movies are. It's as if he hadn't seen either of the other two, but
Probably hasn't.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, but yeah, I found that a few times with some of these films. It's just, it's almost like I don't like to say this, but it's almost like the wrong person reviewing it because they're going in with an attitude that you shouldn't have when you're reviewing any film. But I know you go in sometimes with your own personal prejudices and your own attitudes, but still, come on, try and be fair.
I think it's funny because, as I say, the audience that I was in with was, really up for it, and there was guys coming in, obviously, with all sorts of T-shirts on and stuff like that. And I think that he's perhaps not the most like beloved Marvel character or sort of superhero character, or whatever. But I think it does attract a certain type of person, that film, because it's not your sort of kind of schmaltzy superhero saves the world type of thing. It is that kind of schoolboy humor. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the jokes, like they do them, but I still found it really funny, and I still love all the nonsense and the piss takes. And I think that if you go in expecting some like big narrative, like, Jesus, you have come to the wrong film. It's just 2 hours of nonsense.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a certain type of movie, and it's proven to be massively successful. Like I said, upwards of 200 million. It's going to be possibly the biggest film of the year.
Oh, I mean, I've got no doubt about it, and it's interesting because there's been so many flops leading up to this. But I'm not saying critically, because obviously there are films that lots of fans and critics alike have really, really enjoyed. But box office wise, there's just been so many disasters, and actually, the timing of it, obviously linking up with what Marvel are saying they're going to do at Comic-Con, it's obviously quite fortuitous because this has done so well. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman have been on every conceivable podcast, TV show, whatever. I watched them on the Hot Wings Challenge. I've watched them on Chicken Chop Date. Like, they've been everywhere promoting this. And it's obviously that chemistry that they have. And it still kind of feels like they're doing a bit, even when they're being interviewed. That they're sort of hoping will draw people into the film. Yeah,
it has been very evident that they've been totally out there pushing this. Whereas before you would get a certain amount of publicity, but like you say, they've been in everything. You see them, it pops up because I think I've got it in my Facebook page. It follows certain MCU things and all that, and this has just been almost constant. And it's them in Venice, but they were in Paris and all that as well.
Yeah.
I think
they were in Berlin for some of the Euro stuff as well, trying to make it insane. Yeah,
but it's obviously worked. Even though the word was out there, just the fact that they're constantly doing this. So it's just constant social media presence, and it just does them absolutely no harm whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, like I say, there's been so many films this year that have performed badly. Yeah, I mean, like Furiosa, for instance, that's not done the business that anybody thought it would, which is a real shame because it's a cracking movie.
What was the other one that had Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling in it that they thought was going to do really well?
Oh, If the Imaginary Friends.
No, the live action one. They were like stunt performers or something.
Oh, you're talking about the Fall Guy. Yeah, sorry, I thought you meant
because they thought that was going to do really well, and it hasn't as well. It's kind of bizarre.
I know, and that's on. Is that on streaming services already? I think it might be on Amazon or something already. Yeah, it lasted very little time in the cinema, which is a shame because it's a decent film. It's fun. I mean, I know I've talked about it before, but it's actually a fairly decent film. And if you didn't know that it came from a TV series from the 1980s, it would make absolutely no difference. It doesn't matter that it's there. It's just. Because it doesn't really link in with the story in any way. It's completely different. I think I've just used, obviously, the same name for the main character. But, it basically completely stands alone. But they say, no, it doesn't have brand recognition. It doesn't really need to. You've got Ryan Reynolds and Emily Blunt, so...
See, even just that phrase, brand recognition, that makes me feel sick. Like, what the fuck has cinema become?
Oh, well, I mean, you've only got to look at the Marvel announcements this week, and that's
none of which have particularly made me go, "Oh, I'll be in the queue to see that." I have to say, but I mean,
what? Not even Robert Downey Jr. coming back?
I don't get it.
What do you mean you don't get it?
Like, is that a thing in the comic books? Is that what happens, or have they just run out of actors to cast?
Yeah, I think they have. Yeah, no.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, no. Doctor Doom is an entity on his own. He hasn't been a good guy and then turned into a bad guy. He was Victor Von Doom. He was a scientist who turns into Doctor Doom. Probably, I can't remember exactly how it happens, but I think there's been a couple of different iterations in the comics of how he became the bad guy, because he's the main antagonist in the Fantastic Four comic series.
Well, yeah, because that's what I was thinking, because obviously Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and even Boss Navarro, can't remember how you pronounce his surname. They have all been obviously doing the red carpet thing. Again, I'm like, I'm going to throw this out there, and I realise that I'm probably in like an entity of one. I actually really like the Fantastic Four film with Michael Chiklis.
There's nothing to dislike about it. It got a lot of... It hasn't aged particularly well, but I remember watching them at the time and thinking the first one was really good. The second one was a bit more of a dip because that had it was the Silver Surfer in that one. And if you've ever seen the Silver Surfer cartoons or read the comics, they are very wordy. There's a lot of monologue of the surfer, because half the time he's surfing through space. So it would just be him going, whoosh. So it has to have this inner monologue about the torment and all that sort of thing. So so it can get a bit wordy at times, and that did kind of come across a wee bit in the second film, but it was still really enjoyable. I did not have a problem with either of those films. Even the 2016 one, which the Miles Teller one, the first half of that film is really good. It just kind of falls off a cliff after about 50 minutes, which is not great. But again, it could have been really good. And I think there was obviously the whole Josh Trank thing. He was directing it, and he said, there was a lot of interference, and he was cast as kind of the bad guy in the whole thing as well. Been very difficult to work with and all that. So yes, there's obviously like a whole load of history behind that one as well. But yeah, the chances are this is going to be good, but they, like you say, they desperately needed a hit. They needed a big film, and obviously they've got it. But how do they go on from there? I know there's like a Captain America film coming out next year and various other bits and pieces and stuff, but they've kind of spoiled their copybook a little bit with some of the TV stuff they've had out and everything as well. It's just not been up to par, not been as good as it should be. So we shall see. And it does feel a bit of kind of desperation as well, because they're bringing back the Russos and things like that. So but we shall see. We shall see how it pans out.
Yeah, it was interesting. I've been following some of the Comic-Con stuff, because obviously the cast of The Boys. I don't know if you've watched season 4, but I have really not enjoyed it. And then the last episode was incredible, and I was like, where has this been for the previous 9 or 10 or whatever I've just watched? But they're actually doing another prequel and they're bringing back the Jensen Ackles character, Soldier Boy, and it's going to be kind of prequels to how he sort of became involved with the formation of Vought, I guess. That kind of caught my eye because Sammy always says that what's it called? Is it V or something? It's just called the other spin-off. He always says that's good.
Oh, Gen V, the one
Gen
set
V,
in the Academy or whatever it is. Yeah.
But then at the same time, I just think I had such... Does that mean it was like... This is going to sound ridiculous, like first world problems, but it was such an effort to plough through this season of it because it was just... It really felt like it jumped the shark, and I was actually quite glad when I got to the end of it. But as I say, the last episode was so bloody good that you were like, well, what the hell happened for the previous 11 hours I've committed to this? So, yeah, but I'd be quite interested to see that. I think is probably one of the main things I've seen that I thought looked quite good.
Yeah, I watched, is it Murder and Other Details, or is it Death and Other Details? I can't remember the name of the title. It's Mandy Patinkin. It's set on a boat. It's a murder mystery set on a boat. And that started off really well, and then it seriously dipped in the middle of it. And then after about episode 7, it started to get really good again. So as it built up towards its finale, and it was kind of, everything was tied off quite nicely and everything by the end of it. But that felt a bit of a, like say, ploughing through it just to get through it, which is not good. I expected a lot more of it, to be perfectly honest, which is neither here nor there. I also have you seen Sugar on Apple TV, the Colin Farrell detective?
No, but I'm so intrigued.
Oh, you need to watch that. And I will tell you about the start of it and nothing else, because there's lots of things on the go in it. He is a private investigator who finds people. He's got this uncanny knack for being able to find lost people. And he is on this case where he's looking for the missing granddaughter of a movie producer. So, and it's all set in Los Angeles and Hollywood, and it's all these Hollywood types. But he's also a film nut as well. He just loves like old film noir. And he's always dressed in this lovely sharp suit. He's got a black suit with a black tie, white shirt, slick back hair, and and he can talk endlessly about all these old films, and they show wee clips from various films, like Double Indemnity and all this sort of stuff. And it just sort of just to emphasize points in it, and it's really good. If you
that sounds like it was made specifically for me. That sounds amazing. That sounds so good. I thought we need to start Slow Horses as well. And then we need to finish the last season 3 of The Bear. And then Chris wants to watch Shogun. I don't know if you've seen that. Is that any good?
I've started seeing it. It's really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Again, it's one of these ones where I wouldn't watch all at the one time. I would space it out, because if you watch too much of it, you'll kind of be like, oh no, this is a bit of a slog. But see, if you give yourself a wee bit of a breather in between it, go and watch something else, then yeah, it's really good. And it's mostly in Japanese as well. There's an awful lot of non-English getting spoken. And even when they're speaking, when the main character's speaking English, he's actually speaking Portuguese. He's not speaking English, but he is speaking English, which is fine. Which is because that's what, obviously, the only people who were in Japan at the time were the Portuguese monks and all that. They had a route into Japan, and they were trading with certain elements within there, and no one else from the West was allowed to trade with Japan. It was all done through the Portuguese. So that's what the whole kind of story is about. It's this Englishman trying to make inroads into it, and it's all the feudal houses. It's really good. It's cracking. And apparently, even though the book that it's based on has been covered in the whole series, there is a second series of it coming out.
I saw that it got renewed.
Yeah, which is pretty bizarre. But I haven't finished it yet, so I really need to get back onto it. But I hadn't read the book, but I had watched the TV series it was a mini series in the early 80s. It was Richard Chamberlain was He was the main character, because he was a big deal sort of the early 80s. It was that, and like the Thornbirds and things like that. And it's nothing like that at all. It's seen more from the Japanese side than anything, which is excellent. But yeah, it's really worth watching. Definitely, so much stuff to see. You know,
every time we go down to like we sit and watch something, I'm like, would we start or would we finish, or we're in the middle of something, or do we give up on that? Because I was sorely tempted to say we got to episode 6 of The Boys, and I was kind of like, I really want to give this up, but because you've committed to it, and because I'd watched the previous 3 series as well, you do feel a sort of weird obligation to finish it. And then, like, for light relief and stuff like that, I've just been watching. I mean, honestly, there's this. I think it's on. Is it More 4 or something like that? It's called Summerdale Murders. It's basically like this tiny wee town in Denmark, and it's you can imagine people watching it at like 2 p.m. on a Sunday on BBC Two. It's that kind of not very good but still watchable drama where everyone owns a nice house by the sea and everybody knows everybody. It's almost like Midsummer Murders type of thing. Be watching that, but I mean it was just that was almost, as I say, for light relief, because it was like so bad that you couldn't stop watching.
So even for light relief you watch programs about murders?
Well, you didn't really see dead bodies in this one, like how usually when you watch the Scandi crime drama, there's like proper grisly close-ups. This was just like, oh, their beach house looks so nice.
Yeah, there's one on ITV called McDonald and Dodds, which is just nonsense. I think it's absolute rubbish, but it's that kind of almost light relief detective thing. And yes, there's usually a murder or two involved, but it's nothing, it's kind of like, that's not the real story of it or anything, so I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Not really been watching much else, I have to say, apart from a few wee bits and bobs, like just for today, obviously. Although I did do the Well Good Movies podcast on Friday night, and because of the wee chain of films, I had to watch Coyote Ugly, which is an hour and a half of my life that I'll never get back, quite frankly.
Never seen it.
Oh, don't. I'm actually begging you not to. Because
that's fine, yeah.
I was too young to see it at the cinema. I always remember, because I think it was maybe a 15 when it came out, and I was only 11 when it came out. And it's just been one of those films that's completely passed me by. And just that way, I sat down, I watched it on the Monday, the podcast was on the Friday, and thank God I'd taken notes, because I'd actually forgotten just everything about it. It was just so meaningless that I'd just forgotten it by the time I actually sat down to talk about it. So, but I won their wee quiz at the end, so I got to pick the next film. You obviously have to link it in. So Coyote Ugly is based on an article, so I picked Dog Day Afternoon because that's also based on an article. So a slight change of tone and hopefully a better quality of film for them.
Nice. Well, there'll be loads to talk about with that film, definitely. That's a really good film.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I remember, because I said to Chris, I was like, I've picked that because it's a Life magazine article. And he was like, oh, I don't think I liked that film. And now I'm panicking because I'm pretty sure I watched it and thoroughly enjoyed it. I watched it at uni, I'm sure. And I rewatched like clips of it and I was like, no, this is a good film. I think you might just be talking shit.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
And gives them slightly more to talk about than Girls Dancing on a Bar.
Yeah, it was award nominated and all sorts.
Yeah, I think it won an Oscar.
Yeah, I think so. We can talk top threes as well.
Yes.
I've chosen 3, which are not the 3 that you've chosen. I have picked... Oh, sorry. There you go.
I feel like mine are all really recent because I actually looked back on Nick Cage's filmography and I have seen more than like 3 of his films.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I would say these are the 3 that I've seen most recently that I could talk about confidently, whereas some of them I'm just like, oh, I know I've seen that.
Yeah.
There's a film with Cher at some point as well. I know I've definitely seen.
Moonstruck. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that was years ago, so.
Like you say, you will have seen more than you remember because he's been so. I mean, you've probably seen the National Treasure ones as well. So.
Do you know, I actually haven't, and I'm going to give a special shout out to Chris Matz, who listens to our podcast and is National Treasure obsessed. Like, this man is petitioning on a regular basis to have more National Treasure films made, and he absolutely adores Nick Cage. So I said to him, I would give him a shout out, and he also said, I hope the National Treasure 1, 2, and 3 are your top 3 picks. I've not seen any of them.
I see that was a wee bit of a test for you because there's only been 2 National Treasure films. There's been 2.
Oh, really? For God's
sake. TV series didn't have him in it, so.
Right, okay. And then there was another thing that I think I've definitely seen as well. It's like one where he's on a motorbike and he's a skeleton. Ghost Rider?
Ghost Rider, yes. Yeah.
Seen that. So I have actually seen more Nick Cage films.
There's two Ghost Rider films as well, yeah. Johnny Flame, I think his name is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I remember that because I used to read those comics as well, the Ghost Rider comics.
Oh, right.
Which were
cool.
good. But
so is that part of the universe?
Oh yeah, that's part of
the universe?
It's part of the Marvel universe. Ghost Rider, I think, was going to be so sort of he's a like a bad guy, obviously. Well, and flaming skull riding a motorbike. He's not going to be a good guy. Yeah, yeah, he's part of the Marvel stuff, and at some point there's been various things about bringing the likes of that character into it as well, because there's so many of them that they could quite easily add them to it. I don't know who owns Ghost Rider though, because obviously when Nick Cage did the films, it was like 2010 or something like that. So no, it was, what am I saying? It was before that, so it was well outside of the MCU.
Is that maybe
stuff.
a Sony thing as well? Then actually, maybe
quite possibly, yeah. I don't know if it was tied in with the Spider-Man deal that Sony had, but I'm sure they can work something out, because there doesn't seem to be anybody looking to make a Ghost Rider film. But they're good fun. You know, they won't trouble you in any way.
Yeah. Unlike this film, which has left me extremely troubled for about 3 weeks after watching it.
Well, yeah, you and me both. Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, man, I've properly freaked myself out just thinking about that film again. I do want to watch it again, because I do think it's a film that is going to merit repeat viewing, because there's going to be so much stuff that you've missed. But yeah, I've got a newfound appreciation for Nick Cage, unbelievably.
No, it's always good. It's always good to have something like that, you know, like something maybe that you didn't really think about before, and you're saying, well, there's life there. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
Well, because I think in my head I do just think of like Con Air and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't actually think of all the good stuff that he's done.
Yeah, but that was 30 years ago. So you know, I know, but it's because there's, like we mentioned before, there's so many actors out there who are really just paying the bills with their performances. They're not invested in them in any way. They're just doing it for, and I don't understand why they're doing it, especially some of them, like Stallone. Why does he not just stop? Because
no, that's my question, right? Because it always makes me think of that. Is it Michael Caine with Jaws 4, and he's like, wants to buy a new house or whatever. But surely, like, these are creative beings. And I don't know about you, but if I don't get to podcast or write or do something, like, I start to get like bitchy. I mean, because you need that creativity outlet. I don't know how these people can do these really bad, like you've been like the bargain bin in Asda for £2 DVDs. You know, how can you do that and walk away and take that check and not feel anything? I just don't get that.
Yeah, find another creative outlet, because they all have them. That's the thing, you know. They don't just act; they can be involved in films in another way, and they all have interests outside, like painting and writing and all
they
that
play
sort of
music
stuff,
and stuff like that as well. And do you know what's been really bizarre? So this weekend at the Belgian Grand Prix, Alpine, who the French team they're co-owned by Ryan Reynolds, so they were in Deadpool and Wolverine livery this weekend. But what's been really weird is Brad Pitt is still shooting his F1 film. And what's been really weird is see all the press conferences after. So he's been joining the actual drivers for the national anthems, which is weird as fuck, because he's standing there next to like Lewis Hamilton and stuff like that. But then what's been really weird is like in the press pit afterwards, you know, drivers are saying like, oh, that was shit and I wish I'd done this and whatever, or they're really annoyed about something, or they're jubilant. And there's Brad Pitt going around in the background acting as if he's talking to like ESPN and like DAZN. And it's so mental, because there was a clip, was it last week at the Hungarian Grand Prix, where Brad Pitt's obviously doing his interview, then he walks away and you can see Fernando Alonso doing like a proper cartoon. Giving an interview, he wasn't in this race. Like, but he's obviously like he's been in the cars because he was driving at Silverstone as well. And I always think, for me, I always thought that Tom Cruise would make an F1 movie because he's always at the Grand Prix. So it's interesting that, because it's the director from Top Gun Maverick, Joseph Kosinski,
yeah. Yep.
But it's Brad Pitt that's in the car, which is, I mean, he's like 50. There's not even drivers in the grid that are 50 odd, and yet he's obviously in this film. But it's been absolutely hysterical to see that side by side, where he is like obviously shooting scenes, but real life is happening. It's going to be such a weird film to watch, because I saw a clip of it before the British Grand Prix, and like Kim Bodnia, do you know how from The Bridge? I think he's playing a team principal. Kerry Condon's in it. Javier Bardem's in it as well. But then you're seeing clips of like Gunther Steiner peeking out the Haas garage, like watching them walk past. It's going to be a head fuck because it's going to be too real.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds good. Actually, it does sound really good. Nice.
Have you seen the trailer for it?
What? No, I've not seen it.
Oh, you should look it up.
All right. Excellent. I will do.